Howdy, howdy, fellow movie watchers, and welcome back for another edition of the Wisco Movie Watchers podcast, brought to you by PTE Creative. As always, we are your hosts, Evan Davies, and our resident Oscars expert, Davies, in our final 5-year retrospective prior to the Oscars this year. Who knows if we're going to even go back further in history? Well, I'm sure we will at some time, but this is our final 5 years of the last 25 years that we've been covering on a monthly basis, covering the years 2019 to 2023. And woof, Dylan,
Yep.
there's not a whole lot to cover as much as people might think.
Yeah. Couple really good years, and then a couple stinkers.
Yeah, and it's an
It's
interesting,
well,
interesting to
it's
say
just
the least.
it's just like every year. There's some peaches in every year, and then there's always somewhere you just don't feel them.
Yeah, and this is clearly a reflection of, and we'll get to 2020 is obvious what is the derailment, and we'll talk about that. And if you don't know what the obvious derailment is, probably have legitimately been living under a rock.
Yeah.
But 2019 is kind of the last of the traditional years that we've covered, and then it's kind of that's the end of an era, and then it's a new era
Yeah.
from that
So
standpoint.
there's a couple things on the 2019 ceremony. A couple rule changes. Foreign language film became international film because they thought it was more inclusive to do that.
Okay.
Um, e- Even though the rule was still, I think the rule is still movie has to be at least 80% non-English. I think that's the rule. Um, yeah. And then they
It-
finally made it.
that's just
They
one.
approved.
That's just one of the things that immediately people are going to be a bunch of fucking snowflakes changing shit, and you just go, I don't think that really needs to change,
It
but okay.
doesn't matter. And then they finally approved the rule of makeup and hairstyling 5 nominees instead of 3.
I noticed
They
that.
finally
I was
they finally
positive.
got that right. And then 2019 is where you really see Netflix going hard for
Yeah.
because the year before, which I forgot to mention, is 2018, is when Roma got nominated for Best Picture, which was Netflix's first for Best Picture. And then 2019 is where you see like, okay, yeah, Netflix is going hard.
Yeah, it's very interesting because I don't associate them with quality film. So,
Uh, yeah, they're really hit and miss, especially like their award season stuff is very hit or miss. Like, I guess it's just like every other studio where like you can see award season bait stuff that like just really misses the mark at
I
times.
think it becomes abundantly clear it's bait
Yeah,
because that's not what Netflix is known for. What Netflix is, and I
yeah,
think that's even better reflected right now into their current model of what they're doing. 2019, they're still trying to say we're king of the movie, but yet we're already in the era of we're already seasons into House of Cards and Stranger Things and a lot of the original great television products that they had. And by the time of the 2019 the Oscars for 2019, we already have The Witcher coming out. Like this is still a television first original model, and then they just collect movies. So then for them to be like, oh no, we're Oscar, we're an Oscar worthy studio, you're like, this feels very trying to bait people into believing you are something. And then when you look at
yeah,
their current model, they're clearly trying to get into the television game even more with live sports, hosting, live boxing, Christmas Day, football games, Monday Night Raw on a live basis every single Monday night. They're like, no, 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 we're television again. It's like, then what are you? So when Netflix does say, no, no, we make these great products, you're like, it feels pretty baity. Okay, interesting, but I mean, good on them for believing that they can do it. If you can do it, you can make it work. Great. It's just a lot of the time, Oscar bait is usually what annoys people away from the Oscars. is because they know you're gunning for an award half the time, and it doesn't feel like you're trying to please an audience, and that's why I think
Yeah,
people don't like it.
and that's one of the things I will give. That's one of the nicer things about the Oscars is like in the past 20 years, you've Oscars kind of move away from that standard.
Yeah.
Like there has been a lot less of that kind of like typical Oscar bait movie stuff
Well, especially
in
because it's become a term.
nominees.
It's become a term where people
Yeah,
are like, yeah, this is
exactly.
an Oscar bait movie, and everyone, half of the audience just goes, cool. They don't even watch it because they just go, what's the point? And some of that's wrong because there's a lot of good stuff that is Oscar bait movie. There's some of it is not. But it's difficult in a 2019 year because think of the juggernauts. You have the ultimate fan pleasing movie, possibly of all time, as the number one hit at the box office this year. To set the stage, you have Avengers Endgame, which is legitimately almost 15 years of film building to one event. Like, like rewarding fandom and rewarding pleasing an audience, right? And half the movie is built to be these like giant crowd reactions of people celebrating movies together. Then you have the quote unquote live action Lion King.
Yeah.
Toy
I was gonna say the fact that we called that was live action is an absolute joke.
yeah. Toy Story 4, Frozen 2, Captain Marvel, Star Wars Rise of Skywalker, Spider-Man Far From Home, Aladdin, again, live action. Joker, It Chapter 2, Jumanji Next Level, Us, Fast and Furious Presents Hobbs and Shaw, John Wick 3, Parabellum, How to Train Your Dragon 3, Detective Pikachu, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Shazam, Knives Out, Dumbo, Aquaman. How many of those titles say these aren't for an audience? None of them. They're all gunning for a specific audience. They're all really trying to please that audience. Whether they do that or not is a different story. But they're all specifically going for something to try to please an audience. So then when you have Oscar bait coming out, you're like, well,
Yeah. I mean, and
I'm sorry, Aquaman came out in
yeah,
2018, but it got more gross in 2019. So
yeah, that's. So do you have any technical changes?
I think a shout out or a nomination for film editing for Avengers Endgame is very worthwhile with how much interplay there is. I don't think it. I'm not saying it deserves to win, but I think a nomination for film editing is worthy for Avengers Endgame. Uh, and then I have production design. I would have. I would have chosen Jojo Rabbit. I think the production design of Jojo Rabbit perfectly encapsulates this underlying dread of Germany where you know the other shoe's going to drop. When you watch that
I
film,
love Jojo Rabbit so much.
it's a tremendous film. And when you just look around at the sets and how things are designed of the film, it perfectly encapsulates both this childlike wonder of this warped Hitler Youth boy and why he would think this is such a great fantasy, while also capturing this horrid underlying dirt and grit and grime of Nazi Germany at the end. And it perfectly encapsulates both, and that is such a ridiculous dichotomy that I think the production design deserves that award. It's just
Yeah, it
so
went
good.
to Once Upon a Time, which I'm okay with that winning.
Yeah, I have no issue if it wins. It just feels a lot like that one felt when I read it, I just went, this feels like it's a movie about old Hollywood.
Yeah,
So it wins because it's about old, like, you know how like a bunch of people anytime like a movie that celebrates the past of movies magically gets a ton of awards and you're like,
but
cool.
yeah,
I'm not saying it's not worthy. It
but there
feels
is
like part of
yeah,
that ilk.
there is a lot of like beautiful like 1970s late 1970s, like beautiful, like LA, like grimy
Yeah.
70s stuff, which is really awesome to see. And like I can't remember what they call it in the movie, the ranch they go to and stuff is really fun to see.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, the Manson Ranch and all that. Like, I'm okay with that winning, but I do. The thing is, Jojo Rabbit. That's the one I would have picked for film editing, just from like immediately from the jump where you have the Beatles playing and it's a montage of Hitler. Like
Yeah.
just from the jump like that, I love that immediately.
It's a creative film. I think I think
Yeah,
without question, Jojo Rabbit is the best Taika Waititi film.
yeah.
There's
I'm
been.
really glad it won screenplay because that was the most fun I had in that year for like going to the actual movies.
Yeah.
Because that's one of the few that actually saw movie theater that year.
Yeah.
Um, 'Cause that was I remember if I was in New Hampshire at that point, think I was, and I was, like, really far away from any movie theater,
Yeah.
so it was, like, really hard to get to any movie.
Yeah,
Um,
You were still in New Hampshire at that point, for sure.
yeah. I think the closest movie theater to me that actually showed movies like Jojo Rabbit, I think I drove 3 hours to
Jesus
see it.
Christ.
Yeah, or, like, 2.5, something like that. So, yeah, it was quite a drive. Yeah, it sucked. Um, but that just shows how much I wanted to see that, and 1917 I also saw in the theater that year.
Yeah. I mean,
The only other one I had down for technical changes, I would have really loved to see a nomination, original screenplay for Us. Again, just
fair.
horror movies never getting love.
Yeah, and Us is a very unique screenplay. To
Yeah.
say the least, is a good idea behind it. I have no beef with that.
I think it's just as good as Get Out.
Wow. That's high praise.
I I think it honestly, I think it's in terms of a horror movie,
Yeah.
I think it's better than Get Out. I don't think it's as good on socio-political level,
Yeah.
like commentary level, but in terms of like actual horror scariness level, it's better. It
Okay.
does scare me a lot more.
Admittedly, I've yet to see Us.
Oh,
I've seen
it's
so many
great.
clips and I know the twist. So I'm kind of like
Yeah, that kind of ruins it.
and that was one it's kind of like the Sixth Sense. Once you know the twist, you're like, okay.
Yeah. I mean, it still is like even without the twist, I think you'd still enjoy it.
Yeah.
'Cause it's not like the twist is like the pivotal thing in that movie.
Yeah. It's
But
certainly just it's something that takes it away. Well, ironically, I've actually done a lot of work creatively around Us. So, the youth center I worked at in Chicago, they every year the art students built a haunted house out of the locker room. And we had two locker rooms side by side, so for their Halloween fest, they would build two different haunted houses. It was a lot of fun. And the first one, the opening sequences of it were all based on Us. Someone made this beautiful mural, like giant cutout that was, I don't know, like 6 by 8 something, really crazy, really big, of the mask reveal of Lupita Nyong'o's character, and a lot of like mirrors around and things of that nature. And the 2 years I was there, I always ended up somehow going from, hey, I have extra time, let me go help, to Evan knows what he's doing and it's taking a load off our plate. Screw it, just let him go do it. so so it's just me working with all the teenagers a lot of the time, just being like,
yeah.
yeah, fine, whatever, just let Evan do it. So
Yeah, I mean, that movie's kind of built for haunted house.
and then I learned a lot about the film because of that. And so I
Yeah.
was like, oh, it sucks 'cause I wanted to see that because like really, I love Get Out, so I'd love to see it. But once you know once half the movie's been told to you, and you
Yeah.
know the twist, you're kind of like, okay, well, one day. And it's always on that again, that endless docket of one of these days I'll get to it.
Yeah, it's a fun movie. Do you have any other technical?
I would have changed visual effects to Avengers Endgame because half that movie is visual effects and they're seamless. They're truly
I
seamless in
would
that
say
film.
I would argue probably more than half that movie is visual effects.
Oh yeah, but that's the one thing is if you're gonna have a movie that's so much previs, one of the things you
I
have to
think
give credit for is the fact that the visual effects, if they work, clearly are fucking good.
I
So,
want to say I think I want to say that movie has like 2,300 visual effects shots in it, which like that's an insane amount of shots that need visual effects.
and beyond that,
Like
they're creating full
in a
armies
movie.
of CG characters, and they all look incredibly impeccable. There isn't a whole lot. There isn't anything in there where you just
Yeah.
go,
I think
I don't know about
it,
that
I think
one.
it went to I think it went to 1917 because like we were talking about last episode, it goes back to the Interstellar. What was the other one that we talked about?
Oh God, I can't remember. Guardians of the Galaxy, was it?
Oh, I'll go. I can look real quick. But the Interstellar thing where we were talking about, oh, it was First Man and Interstellar,
Yeah,
where they're picking the things that uh, show the reality of the world more than the fantastical stuff.
yeah,
So it's like 1917. You wouldn't guess that has like tons of visual effects, but it actually does because that's what's making it a one take movie.
yeah,
Is visual effects. They're hiding it lately and it seems completely inconspicuous, but really, there's a
yeah,
lot of visual effects in that movie.
yeah.
So
I mean, I understand the logic. I just
yeah,
in
it
a
is one of those things that we talked about.
in a 3 hour epic, that's that is
I know.
solely based off of visual effects. That's the one of all the things of this year that I was
Yeah,
baffled by.
I'd
I
be
was just like,
curious.
how? Come on.
I'd be curious to look at like the actual visual effects, like whatever guild they have to see their awards,
Yeah.
like how they actually split it up. Yeah, I'd be curious to look at theirs.
I mean, I can't believe they didn't
Um,
win for the portal scene alone. Where like
yeah,
all the people are coming out for
I'm
the
sure.
Avengers and they have all of
Yeah,
Thanos' army. I'm just like, come
I'm sure
on.
I'm sure they split it up by genre, something
Yeah.
in their actual guild awards. But jumping into the bigger categories here, you got Bong Joon Ho winning Best Director for Parasite, actor Joaquin Phoenix for Joker, Renee Zellweger winning her second Oscar for Judy, Brad Pitt finally winning an Oscar for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Laura Dern winning supporting actress for Mary. What have you seen out of those?
Sadly, Joker and half of Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, like on a
Like it?
watch through. Oh, I'm not saying I haven't. I don't like what I saw,
Oh, I thought you turned it off.
but
But
I think I think there was a group of people watching it as I was coming home from work one day, or something like that, or like Ab had a few people over when they were watching it, and I came through like halfway, and I've seen bits and pieces of the movie as well, so I'm kind of like, well, I get it, I got it,
have you
you know.
seen the ending?
Yes, that's
Oh,
fine.
okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, the ending is absolutely bonkers.
Oh yeah,
It's
it's a Tarantino
completely
movie. Of course, it's
insane.
bonkers. Everything since Inglorious Bastards is just let's just make some wild shit happen.
Yeah, I love his historical rewriting stuff.
Yeah,
It's
that's
so great.
it's fun. So yes, I've seen a good amount of it. I have no issue with that. The only I think worthy of nomination, I could see Taika Waititi for Best Supporting Actor for Jojo Rabbit. That performance is so understated, sinister, and the heel
That's
turn.
one, yeah, that's one that I didn't think of, but I would have been okay with that. Yeah.
And I also, again, I didn't watch enough of them to define this as my opinion. Scarlett Johansson and Jojo Rabbit. I'm glad she got a nomination for that. That's the one.
Yes.
Like, if you said you have to pick, that would have been the one I picked.
Double nominee too.
Yeah,
Got best actress. Well,
and that was one where I
Marriage
just went,
Story.
you know what? I just think it's she's one of those actors that started off as so clearly,
Well, she was so clearly typecast into the like X-Pot kind of thing.
yeah, she was just so clearly typecast as this is the hot girl that goes into movies, right?
Exactly.
And when you finally get to see her act, you're like, God damn, girl.
Well, yeah,
Okay.
and Marriage Story like is great. Like Marriage Story is what I don't know if you've seen it, but it's like kind of pretty much just like a modern day Kramer versus Kramer,
Yeah.
which is just like Dustin Hoffman and Meryl
Meryl
Streep
Streep. Yeah.
putting on an acting uh like
Clinic,
yeah,
essentially.
pretty much. It's just those two like being great at acting. It's just like Adam Driver and
I was gonna say it's Adam Driver.
Scar-
It's Adam Driver and Scarlett Johansson, right?
yeah, it's just those two being great. So it's just like they're both great
I
actors.
mean, it's good that he had that in the same year of Rise of Skywalker because
That's true.
he's the only thing about Rise of Skywalker I find to be somewhat tolerable.
He's
And
the only
it's
part of the whole trilogy that I
yeah, and the sad part is he has such a petulant, stupid character that it's when he gets to be the few times in the movie he gets to be subtle or calculating. Those are when it's fun to watch the sequel trilogy, is to watch him work. But when he has to just be petulant 12-year-old, I didn't get what I wanted, throwing tantrums, Kylo Ren, you're like,
yeah, again, that's why I don't like Star Wars.
I mean, also the last Star Wars episode. We're recording this episode on January 16th, just to get in there, right? And our Star Wars Revenge of the Sith episode is the last episode that's been released since doing this. And naturally, it started off slow and naturally the views are coming in and we're getting the hate watchers. So it's
Oh,
always fun to
good.
do Star Wars. Like we got one comment on that and they're just like, you guys are delusional. And I just went, I love our Star Wars episodes. I just love this because it doesn't matter what you do in any opinion you have on Star Wars is wrong, so it doesn't matter in terms of
Yeah,
the
that's
internet.
true.
Anybody on the internet will just tell you your opinion's wrong on Star Wars somehow,
Yeah,
and it's
yeah,
just
that's true.
funny to think about it in the context of Adam Driver. He's doing so much in that sequel trilogy. He's trying so fucking hard,
Yeah, I'll give him that.
and yet there's just a lot of not good around him, man.
Yeah, the only change I had is one that was she was not nominated in Yongo. I would have loved to see her win for Us.
Okay,
Great in that fucking movie.
yeah. From what I've seen in the
But
clips of it, yeah,
uh, again, horror doesn't get any love. So
apparently not.
Hey
Uh,
Zellweger, she is good in Judy, but it's one of those typical Oscar movies.
sure.
But like I can't say like she doesn't deserve it. Like she is great in the movie,
Sure.
and it is like we talked about. I can't remember what. Oh, it was when we were talking about Wizard of Oz for the uh, for our top 100 movies, and you had Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
We were talking about Judy Garland's like super tragic life,
Yeah.
like, and this is like showing Judy Garland in like the later ages of her life. It's like, yeah, it's a pretty tragic story.
Yeah.
She does a good job portraying that.
Also,
Uh,
check out our top 100. As of release of once this episode was released, you'll be able to see 91 through 100 of both our top 100. So go check that out. It's a lot of fun. We're just loving movies.
yeah,
Good
and then
stuff.
just a couple, not ones that I actually had down myself, but just a couple things that people had found that were subs. Shia LaBeouf in Honey Boy,
Actual
who is
cannibal.
actually he's great in that movie, where he's playing like his pretty much his own dad. That's pretty much like a
Yeah.
like autobiography, pretty much.
Yeah, I knew a little bit about that one.
Yeah, that movie's actually pretty good. Willem Dafoe in Lighthouse and Robert Pattinson in Lighthouse. Both those
That
didn't get any
movie
love.
is so eerie, dude. They're
Yeah,
both
I love that
incredible.
movie.
They're both incredible in that movie.
And then Adam Sandler in Uncut Gems. Everyone thought he was going to get a nomination. He didn't,
Yeah.
which is a shame because like his dramatic stuff is always pretty good.
Yeah, he does one, he doesn't get a nom and he doesn't win, and then he goes back to making shitty comedy movies.
Yes.
And
Yeah. And then another one that I had down personally is Florence Pugh in Midsummer. But it's a horror movie. It's not going to get love. So.
yeah, I don't have anything further for those categories. The only one I knew of that I know got pushed. I know there was some actual political push here was Marvel was really trying to get Robert Downey Jr. a nomination for Endgame.
Yeah.
Because they wanted Endgame to feel like the true magnum opus, like Return of the King, and I was just like, it's not.
I remember hearing it, but I remember going, it's never going to happen.
Well, this is when I was blindly in love with Endgame to the point where I really considered Endgame was possibly one of my favorite movies of all time. And even then, I was like, I don't see that one, guys.
Well, it's the same thing I said when I was like, "Oh, I really hope Alan Rickman gets nomination for Severus Snape." Like
Yeah.
I blindly wanted it to happen, but it's never going to happen.
Yeah, I didn't even want it to blindly happen. I just went, guys,
Yeah.
come on.
And then jumping into Best Picture, the actual winner is Parasite, which you can see when they announce it. Everyone fucking loved that it won. Like, everyone was so fucking happy. Other nominees: Ford versus Ferrari, The Irishman, Jojo Rabbit, Joker, Little Women, Marriage Story, 1917, Upon Hollywood. And I'll just say right now, I have no problems with any of those. 100% happy with the winner. I have no changes at all.
I do have one change.
Okay.
No issue with the winner. Take Joker out. It's not a Best Picture nominee. It's not.
But you have something to replace it with. That's the problem.
Nope. But we're already in the era where you don't have to get up to that number. So just take it out. It's not.
That is true, actually. Because coming up, I'll talk about that. But yeah, we are at the point where it could be from 8 to 10. So yeah, that is true. But here, that means that Joker got at least 5% of first place votes. So
that is a.
People loved it enough, I guess.
Oh yeah, that was part of the zeitgeist, and I get it. And that was what was even more bothersome about the movie.
That's just the strange thing to me. Like, I understand, like, liking it to the point of nominating it for Best Picture, but to say it's the best movie of the year, no, it doesn't
No.
make sense to me.
Well, and here's the thing: the first Joker. I've said this a lot. I'll say it again publicly, even though I've said it a ton of times. I do not like that first Joker movie. I'm against that Joker movie being made in general because it completely defeats the purpose of the Joker. So then naturally, to cover their ass when they made Fall I Do, they're like, "It's not actually the Joker. He's kind of the inspiration." I'm like, "Fuck off." You knew what you were doing, and you just tried to not piss off fans. That's all it was. But I can legitimately, I said this right after watching the movie. I don't like this. I don't want this, but it's a good movie. But even when
I thought it was good.
And when I'm watching it in a fair context, I think Joaquin Phoenix is worthy of a nomination for Joker. Whether he wins or not, I didn't fully watch the watch the rest of that category to say like, yeah, but I understand it, and I have no beef with Joaquin Phoenix for an acting award being nominated and winning for Joker. But that movie is not an Academy Best Picture caliber movie to me, and that's where I just go.
The other nominees were Leo and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Adam Driver in Marriage Story, Antonio Banderas in Pain and Glory, which I have not, and then Jonathan Bryce in The Two Popes, which I've seen all those except Antonio Banderas. Honestly, I'd be fine with any of those winning. So
Yeah.
like,
So again, I don't have any issue with Joaquin Phoenix winning. I think the acting performance of the character that he has given is tremendous. And I think that movie gets unfair praise. I don't know. I feel like that movie, especially at the time, got more praise than what it was actually worth because again, it was of its time. And this is at the height of dysfunction of the Trump administration in the US where people are just tired. They're just so fucking tired and they're like, I wish there was just some crazy fucking lunatic that would just blow half this shit up. And that's what the Joker is in that movie. That's what Joaquin Phoenix does. And it also is a compelling story of a person with psychosis. And I understand that, and it's always intriguing to watch that. So, from those two contexts, I easily understand why people liked the movie, regardless of whether I did or not. But when I look at the total product, I don't go, oh my god, that has to be a nominee for Best Picture. I just go, great performance, don't get the rest of it.
yeah. The only other note I had on 2019 is Parasite was actually a huge underdog because 1917 going into it took home the Producers Guild, the BAFTA, the Golden Globe, and Parasite. The only thing going into the night it won was the Egg Ensemble Award. It only had won one big award.
I've yet to watch a Parasite.
It is great,
There's been a lot of late nights where I finally am
especially
responsible, where I look at Parasite at around 1 a.m. and go, I could do this. And I went, not the time.
especially when you know nothing about it. Then it's great.
I don't know shit about Parasite.
Yeah, then it's good.
I know the paragraph description they give you on streaming services about it. That's about it. So
Okay, yeah, I really love that.
I have no beef with Parasite winning because I don't know it. So 2019 was again for Oscar nominees. Jojo Rabbit was kind of the movie I watched, and that was about it.
Yeah, I mean, oh yeah. So for favorite movie, mine was JoJo.
Yeah, favorite movie for mine. I'm sure it will shock you. 0%. It will be Avengers Endgame.
Makes
I,
sense.
I think Avengers Endgame. Obviously not from an award standpoint, but when I look at the work put into Avengers Endgame, it's legitimately a one of a kind. It's 15 years of film and
Yeah,
20, what is it, 21 movies at the time? It's 20, 21 movies at the time, all culminating into one event and truly understanding what a comic book on screen is supposed to be. Love me some Avengers Endgame. Gotta love it. Yeah, Lupin, what's your favorite movie of 2019? Well, he responded. I'll give him that. Did you also love Jojo Rabbit, Lupin? I'm sure you did. And for those just listening, Lupin is Dylan's dog, who's now on screen licking his face.